Hey everybody. When I was a kid, I never owned an Atari 2600, but a friend of mine down the block did, and he basically had every single game there was. I used to go there all the time to play on his 2600 system. Among the games I would play was this one, Adventure, which was basically my favorite game at the time. But since I never had a 2600 at home, I was a PC gamer pretty much. I did have some consoles, but mostly a PC gamer. There was never any way to take a cartridge like this and get it to run on a PC. But there is today. Today you can play Atari 2600 games on your PC. And I think most people watching this know about emulators, and emulators are certainly part of it, but that's not the only problem. One problem is, if you want to use original hardware, original media, how do you actually access the cartridge on the PC? Another question is, if you want to use original controllers, how do you do that on the PC? So those are both questions. And then finally, I think there will be some purists who will say, well, I don't want to do this at all regardless because I want to use the original Atari 2600 console to play my games and not some other emulation or anything like that. And I understand people that have that viewpoint, although, and I have a 2600 myself, although I will say that, Atari themselves changed the 2600 over time. They had the Heavy Sixer model, they had the 4-switch model, they had the Vader model, they had the 7800, which emulates the 2400, the 2600, or is backwards compatible. And I'm sure in that process they consolidated at some points like 3 chips into 1 and things like that. So I guess the question is, how original do you need to be? Is it okay that at some point they took a few chips and they redesigned the board and they consolidated things, used cheaper components? Is that all right? Is it okay if someone takes the whole thing and does one chip for the whole Atari as opposed to the original design with a whole bunch of chips? Is that all right? I mean, why not? I mean, and what's wrong with doing it in software also? At the end of the day, I'm a gamer. What I care about is I have a machine here, this PC, that's going to run this game. Yes, I do want to have the original media because I am somewhat of a purist and I don't like just downloading stuff, especially illegally. So I want to be able to access the original media. And yes, I want to be able to use the original controllers because without that, it's not the same experience. But aside from that, this thing has a screen and this thing has a logic unit, and why not use it just like a console? This is way light years in the future at this point. All right, so again, I know there's some people will not agree, but that's how I feel. And to be honest, I almost feel at this point like, this has become, decades later, this is now a PC game in a sense because you can actually run it on a PC. I mean, you couldn't before, but you can now. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about how to do this. And we'll start with a different cartridge actually. Here's Donkey Kong for the 2600 by Nintendo, produced by, I believe, Coleco for the Atari. Yeah, it says Coleco on the back. In any case, there's a couple things you'll need. In terms of software on the computer, there's 2 pieces of software. Both of them are free. One is called Max Flash Cartridge Studio, and I'll show you how to use that. The other one is Stella. Anybody, again, who's familiar with emulation will know Stella is a sort of the 2600 emulator. So that will be our brains of the operation here in terms of decoding the logic of the games they're getting them to actually run. Now, how do I take a cartridge like this and connect it to the computer? So what I'm going to use here is a device called the Atari Max Flash USB Programmer. Now, this is not the only such device that exists, but this is one which is readily obtainable today. You can go ahead and order it, and I'll put the links in the description down below for anybody who wants to do that. But basically, this is a device that can do a couple things. One is it can actually create, it can write cartridges, it can write programmable cartridges to do things like homebrews, and also it can dump cartridges. So there's a number of adapters that you can buy with it. This one over here is the 2600 adapter. So I'm going to go ahead and take this here and plug it into there. So now I have the adapter connected. And then if you look at this Donkey Kong cart, it has, if you look at the inside, there's a little circuit board sticking out. I'm going to go ahead and plug that into the other end of the adapter. Now I have it connected. And now this thing connects to a USB cable, which the other end of which I'm going to go ahead and plug into this PC over here. And now, having done that, I can use this Max Flash Cartridge Studio program to basically go to the cartridge, say dump it, Atari 2600, it's a standard cartridge. Go ahead and give it a title here. Here I already wrote DK.bin before. And now I have a cartridge that's been dumped that Stella can access over here on the right side. If I go ahead and run this, I get the Donkey Kong program. Very simple. Now, what about the controller? So I have here an original 2600 controller. You might recognize it. This is a standard one that I took out of working 2600. And I have another device here which I purchased, which is called the 2600 adapter. This one's actually the 2600 adapter 2, but you can buy both of them online. It has a piece at the end to plug in your Atari cartridge, and then there's a USB cable attached to the other side, which again plugs into your system. So I'm going to go ahead and take this Atari cartridge, this Atari joystick, and plug it in here to the adapter. And then I will take the other end of the USB cable and plug it into the system. And the nice thing is that Stella actually just natively recognizes this thing. So now I have the joystick, connected to the computer, and I can play Donkey Kong with the joystick. I don't have to do any setup or anything. I'll maximize it for now. And here I am playing Donkey Kong on the 2600. I'm not very good at it, of course, but here I am playing Donkey Kong on the 2600 with a real controller on a PC, having gotten it off a real cartridge. So that is in my mind, that is super cool. I love to do this. I love to play these type of old games on new systems. And I will show you guys one more thing, which is that this Donkey Kong cartridge was actually somewhat easy to dump because, as I showed before, it has the circuit board exposed. Now, most cartridges produced by Atari, such as this adventure cartridge, if you look at it, the circuit board is not exposed, it's sort of closed off. And the way it works is when you plug it into the system, it hits on these, there's a thing inside the cartridge slot that hits on these little notches here to cause it to open up. So, I mean, the way that I've solved this problem right now is that I actually got a spare part of one of these cartridge insert things from the 2600, and then it's pretty easy for me to take the cartridge and just pretend to plug it in here, and that will pop it open, and now I have access to the board, and then I can plug that into the Atari Max and as usual. So that's sort of the best case scenario. If you have this, it's like super duper easy. Then I just connect it as usual, like I did before, and here I go. If you don't have that, you can always just stick something in that hole and get it to pop open, but this is, in my opinion, the cooler option if you can take a 2600 apart or get a part, and I'll try to provide a link for that as well. But anyway, that is how to play a 2600 game on a PC, on a modern PC, using the original cartridges and using original joysticks as well. So I hope you guys found that interesting, and have a good day, everybody.